Dapper Drams presents Flights of Fancy.
Yes, you heard right. Welcome to the first episode of Flights of Fancy, a new segment that I'm trying out here on Dapper Drams. The reason being that I have quite the collection of whiskey samples that have gathered up over the last few years. It turns out that I haven't been able to go through the samples as fast as I would like because, well, I've been working on just going through the full bottles that I already have in my collection and working on, well, this channel. A few weeks ago I decided to take inventory of all these samples, and it turns out that I've got quite the collection. And I noticed that a number of them would make for really interesting side-by-side comparisons. Now, when I started this channel, I kind of made it a rule that I wasn't going to do samples for individual episodes. Reason being that when it comes to samples, I like to take my time, roughly an hour or two per sample. And sitting down in front of a camera to do all the nosing and tasting, and then trying to edit that down into something usable, well, it just didn't appeal to me. But bringing these samples to you as part of a flight, now that seemed like a good idea. So what I decided to do was to pair up three whiskeys that share something in common, be it age statement, or annual releases from a certain distillery, or maybe all batch strength, or anything else really that made them look good on paper. I'm going to use most of each sample to write my review, and then the remaining bit will be used here as part of a fancy flight. Now, these will not be official review videos. I'm not going to give scores on anything. I may say whether or not I feel each one is dapper. Pretty sure I'll do that. So if you want to see how I rated and scored each one, head on over to distiller.com and check out the reviews there. For this first episode, I'm heading over to the Speyside region of Scotland and to the Glenlivet distillery to bring you a side-by-side comparison of their Nadurra releases. Now, for those of you who don't know, Nadurra, which is Gaelic for natural, is a special series of releases from Glenlivet that showcase their whiskeys in a completely natural format. Everything is batch strength, everything is natural color, and everything is non-chill filtered. So here on my cask, which is also a new addition to the show, we have the Nadurra First Fill Selection, which comes in at 59.8% ABV. We have the 16-year-old Nadurra, which comes in at 55.3%, and the Oloroso matured, which comes in at 60.3%. The First Fill and the 16-year-old are both First Fill X bourbon barrels, and the Oloroso matured is First Fill Oloroso. So why don't we get started with the Oloroso matured. It's rich with sweet sherry and lots of fruit, raisins and figs, cherries, apricots, some plums. Why don't we move over to the first fill? Nice light oak, lots of vanilla, sweet vanilla, honey, creme brulee, caramelized sugar, powdered sugar. It's a very sweet dram. Both of them are very sweet. Let's try the 16-year-old. Much stronger vanilla than the first fill. Kind of a green note to it. Toasted coconut and a lot of bourbon notes. The first fills, the 16 and the first fill, share a lot of similarities, but there's a definite difference between the two as well. Let's go back to the Oloroso. Oh, it's a complete turnaround on this one, between those two and this one. Fruitcake, cinnamon, nutmeg, chocolate, black licorice, berries like blackberries and raspberries, green grass and hay, Really nice. It's not a sherry bomb, but it is got those really classic sherry flavors. Even though it's first fill Oloroso, it's not a sherry bomb. I can't explain why. Maybe it's just young. Anyway, let's move back to the first fill. Ripe bananas. I don't get ripe bananas often, but when I do, I really enjoy it. I like bananas. Green grapes. Baked apples and pears with some cinnamon. Kind of a candied lemon. A little chocolate, some hazelnut, and kind of a barley sugar cereal malt type feel to it. And let's go back to the 16-year-old. More of those bourbon notes. It's coming through even more now. Orange marmalade and orange oil. A marshmallow note, which is a bit unusual, I find, for Scotch. Not that I've never had it before, but it's unusual. Barley sugar. Kind of dusty oak. Toffee. Butterscotch. Melons. Apples. Some pineapple. Honey. And vanilla wafers. I think the main theme on this one would have to be bourbon notes and vanilla notes. Let me go back to the first fill one more time. This one is also heavy on the vanilla, but it's more of a sweet, sugary type feel to it, where this one is more oaky and bourbony with the vanilla. Again, the two are vanilla heavy, but it's bourbon vanilla, and this is, sugary vanilla. Out of the three of them side by side, I would have to... Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd have to go with the Oloroso. It's just got that extra fruitiness and extra presence that the other two don't quite have. And between these two, I would take the first fill over the 16-year-old. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the tasting now. And we'll start again with the Oloroso matured. A little peppery. Given the ABV, that's not to be unexpected. It's sweet and densely fruity with plums and apricots, raisins and cherries, sherry oak, kind of roasted nuts, pecans and walnuts. Let's do the 16-year-old next. Strong oak on this one, with those heavy bourbon notes that I got on the nose. A little peppery and sweet vanilla. Slightly tannic with some orange oil. Sort of a light tropical fruit feel, which I did not get on the nose, but I'm getting here. It's hard to pin down which fruits it is. Maybe pineapple or mango, hard to say. Some pears and coconut. And all right, let's move over to the first fill selection. More of that strong oak, which could be cross flavors between the other two. Although I do remember getting the strong oak when tasting it for the review, so it sounds about right. Lots of vanilla and honey and coconut. Classic, ex-bourbon cast flavors. Some bourbon notes in this one. Toasted oak, barrel char. Let's go back to the 16. Oak and bourbon, man. Barley sugar. Cinnamon, but like the cinnamon red hot candies. It's more like that than anything. Toffee, nutty, graham crackers, butterscotch, caramel. It pretty much follows the nose without any surprises, except for those tropical fruits like I mentioned, which I'm not really getting now. Let's move on to the Oloroso. There's a hint, and I mean a hint, of coffee, pancake syrup, and caramel. If I'm repeating any of these flavors, I'm sorry. It's hard to keep track of which ones I'm saying for which. Some cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger. Bit spicy, but good. All three of these are great. Let's go back to the first fill. I'm getting those banana notes like I was before, which is good. I enjoy those. Getting the tropical fruits on this one now, like I was on the 16-year-old. Mostly pineapple, toffee, butterscotch, and cinnamon. Which one? Well, when I rated these individually, I scored the Oloroso Matured and the first fill the same, and the 16 just behind it. Both of these were good, but I think I preferred the first fill over the Oloroso. The 16 came up just behind. Not that it's bad in any way, it's just the other two outshined it. But in this particular setting, with all three of them side by side, I'm going with the Oloroso as the winner. It just stands out as a little bit more mature, more densely flavored. I think the other two, maybe they're just too similar to stand out from each other, whereas this one really stands out between the other two. So yeah, in this case, in this flight of fancy, I'm picking the Oloroso Matured Nadurra from Glenlivet. So now the question of the day is, are these Dapper Drams? Each one of them gets a yes. Now the 16-year-old is not, in my opinion, is not quite as good as the other two, but all three definitely are Dapper Drams. If you were interested in picking up a bottle of the Glenlivet Nadurra whiskies, unfortunately the 16-year-old was discontinued some time ago, but the Oloroso and First Fill are still available. There is a third Nadurra in the lineup, which is the peated whiskey cask. Peated whiskey cask. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but that one is not First Fill. It is matured in casks that previously held heavily peated whiskey. Where that whiskey was from, I'm not sure. Wherever they sourced their cask for on that one. I had that one a few years back. It seemed to be pretty good. I'm not sure it would have beat out either of these other two. Maybe the 16-year-old, maybe not. I don't really remember it that well. Anyway, since these are all released in batches, any bottle you may pick up will most likely be a different strength. The tasting notes may be a little different as well, but overall they should be fairly similar to what I have described today. They'll each run you about $90 to $100, and personally I think that the Nadurra line is worth the money and is the best of the Glenlivet core range. Well, I hope you enjoyed this new Flights of Fancy segment. I plan on doing a Flights of Fancy episode every third or fourth episode, spaced out with the Dapper Drams videos. Until then, you can always watch the new Dapper Drams videos that come out. The next one should be worth the wait. Quite fun, I hope. So please, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out Dapper Drams on Facebook. And of course, head on over to distiller.com and check out all my reviews by searching for the username generously_Paul. That's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next time.
This has been Flights of Fancy, a Dapper Drams production.